Hey everybody, welcome back to the Engineered Angler. Today we're not really going to make a lure, we're going to take a lure that I've already made and make it better. This is a little crankbait I made out of the same material I made that stick bait out of a couple of videos ago. Specifically that PVC trim board. And where I am right now on the finishing of this lure is that I've painted it black, obviously, and then I've put a couple of really smooth clear coats on it. My intention is to create a crankbait version of a gold spoon. So I want this lure to have a truly metallic, reflective gold look and nothing else but eyes. Now in the past, I've made lures gold primarily by starting out with a silver plate. Let me show you a couple of photos. Now that process is a little bit complicated. I've got a couple of videos on doing it. I'll put a little tag up here so you can go check it out. And it's a process that uses two different chemicals that you have to spray at the same time with a duplex sprayer. With this lure, I'm going to try something a little easier and hopefully just as nice. All these spoons are all coated with a chrome type finish that is sprayed on, either with an airbrush or with a rattle can. And I did all these tests to see how I could spray it on and keep it from dulling out. And I had some decent success. If you look at this one in particular, you can see the camera in it pretty well. And getting it really nice, it's kind of twitchy and I don't know, sometimes unpredictable, but it can be done. And some of the best results I got with those spoons was using this stuff. Spaz Stix Mirror Chrome. It's actually a pretty nice product. It can be, like I said, a little bit tricky to get it to go on right and stay bright and shiny. And it essentially sprays on very lightly, it flashes off very quickly, and what it leaves behind is all those little chromium flecks that are suspended in it, laying down and hopefully nice and flat so they create a reflective surface. The trick is keeping that reflective surface, because anytime you add anything to it, whether it's paint on top or a clear coat on top, it tends to go gray and lose its reflective quality. I've had my really greatest success turning a chrome finish into gold by using a really transparent yellow paint. Here's an example of where I've taken a chrome spoon, and you can see it's still chrome at the bottom, and I've turned it gold on the top. As transparent paint is, it still tends to have a little bit of a milkiness to it. Now all that said, my intention is to take this lure and spray paint it with the Spaz Stix, get as shiny a surface as I can on it, and then I'm going to use a mid coat that's a bit unorthodox, but I'm going to spray it with floor wax because I found that that kind of preserves the shine the most. And then I'm going to use UV resin that I've dyed yellow. So I've taken clear UV resin and I've put a few drops of a transparent resin dye, and I've turned it a really bright yellow, and hopefully it'll do the trick. So let's get started. Alright, so first steps first, you're going to need a soft microfiber towel. The good thing about these little microfiber towels is they don't leave any lint behind, and you can use them to give it a last little polish. So I'm going to go straight into spraying the Spaz Stix, and it's got a shaker ball in there. It really needs a good stirring up. I've been using about 28 psi with this. So the idea is to get a good single coat that gives you a full coverage without overloading it and not having to come back and give a second coat. It takes very little of this stuff, and it's a little expensive, so I try to be a little cautious on how much I actually pour out. All right, so that's pretty good. So clean up with this stuff since it's oil-based. You gotta do it with some kind of solvent. I'm gonna use acetone, but you gotta do it pretty quickly. All right, so while it's drying, let me give you a good close look at what the finish actually looks like. And hopefully I can keep it in focus. You can see it's sort of a dull, polished aluminum look. It does look pretty shiny, and it does look very metallic. The real trick in getting a mirror finish, this is not a mirror finish, is getting as smooth a subsurface as you can possibly put on it. And usually that means a 2-part epoxy resin that's self-leveling and ends up with a very glass finish. So it's been about 15 minutes and it's dry. So now I'm just going to give it a very, very light polishing with a microfiber towel. And I want to try to keep this in focus for you guys. So you can see the change when I polish it is subtle, but once it's all done, it kind of is dramatic in the end. So I'm just going to start at the very top, and you can start immediately to see that that very top portion is much more reflective. So we'll just work our way around, and I hope that it's starting to seem pretty obvious that there's a change. You can see how dull it is here. And as you go across here, it becomes more and more chrome-like. So we're going to keep polishing and try very, very light touch. So the chrome looks pretty good right now, right? I mean, it looks very much like it's real chrome. So the next step is really the hardest step, which is protecting that finish from going gray and dull. The best way I've found to do it is either to dip it in floor wax, and this is a clear acrylic floor wax, or to spray it with floor wax. And I'm a little torn which way to go. Spraying it sometimes introduces a bunch of oxygen and kind of fouls it a little bit, so I'm kind of like weighing my options here. I think I'm going to go ahead and dip it, because even though spraying has worked for me and it's a lot quicker, you spray it on and it dries much faster, I've also had some bad results with it. So let's go ahead and dip it. Let's go ahead and do this. All right. Hopefully it'll retain most of its shine. Now, I know it won't look quite as good as it does right before you dip it, but it'll look pretty good, I hope. All right, let's let it drip. All right, so it's pretty much dry and set up and about as reflective as you're going to get Spaz Stix to be after it's been protected. And if you look in there, you can kind of see my fingers reflected pretty well in there. Not great, but it's pretty good. The reflectivity is about as good as you're going to get on Spaz Stix. I want to try one additional experiment, and that is I'm going to take this spoon, which turns out has almost the exact level of reflectivity as this lure does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this one gold, or attempt to, with the best transparent airbrush paint that I have. So first, let's turn this gold, and then we'll use the UV clear and see if we get an improved version with that. And just to be fair, in addition to this transparent orange, I'm going to also coat it with a clear coat of UV, just so we have the same level of finish and one doesn't have an unfair advantage over the other. This is really good for turning silver into gold. This is called it's one of the Ghost Tint color series from Badger airbrush paints. All right, let's go ahead and turn this gold. All right, that looks pretty good. You can see how really lustrous that is and how golden that is. Hopefully the lure comes out at least this good. All right, so now I need to blend a little bit of dye, and this is the dye I'm using. It's actually something I bought from Alumilite. It's called yellow. So I'm dumping in here 2 1/4 grams. That's 2.25 grams. That should be plenty to coat my lure. This dye goes a long way, so 1 drop is really, actually 1 drop might overdo it, so I might have to add more of the clear coat. So let's blend it in. You can see that it immediately goes a very bright orangey yellow, and that's exactly what you want. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Even with the sort of marginal reflective surface that we started with, still get a pretty nice golden finish. Kind of like that. That looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and get this ready for the UV chamber, and then I'll put a clear coat on that spoon as well. So what I like to do is let it kind of rotate in there without the light on just for a few minutes, just to let any of the surface bubbles sort of pop off. All right, let's put a clear coat on this spoon, and hopefully they'll set up at the same time and we'll be able to see which one came out nicer. Turn the lights on and close this bad boy up. And it's just a matter of waiting for those two to set up, and that should be around 30-40 minutes, and then we can set them side by side and check them against our ideal finish, which is this gold spoon, and we'll see how close we get. That if you're enjoying these videos, give me a thumbs up. It really helps build the channel, and subscribe if you haven't. It's free, and I try to answer all the questions and all the comments from my subscribers as much as I possibly can. Okay, it's the next day. I was hoping for a little better weather so we can get down to the dock and get some underwater shots, but it's still pretty gray out. But we can at least take a look at these and compare them, see which ones look best. All right, so let's take a quick look at each one of these individually, and then we'll hold them up to each other. Here's the lure. And this one, I'll remind you, has the tinted UV clear resin. Has a pretty nice reflective surface. You can see my hand in there pretty well. And pretty nice finish all around. I really like the way it looks on the rounded surfaces. I put a couple eyes in there to give it a little more lifelike look, but I'm not going to do anything else to this thing. I'm going to fish it just like this. And here's the spoon. Now, the spoon was the same thing. It was Spaz Stix, and then I turned it gold with the airbrush paint, and this is really good stuff, by the way. And it also has a really nice reflective surface, and if you hold them next to each other, you can see they're pretty much equivalent. They're about the same sort of reflective quality, the same tone of gold. This one is a little deeper than the fish here. The lure has a little sort of a brighter yellower gold to it. When you compare it to the actual metal lure, these really don't compete very well because the reflective quality in this is just much clearer. There's a lot less distortion. All right, well, I'm pretty happy with the results. I think I've got a pretty nice golden crankbait, and I'm thinking that if a redfish will go for a spoon, it'll definitely go for this. So I can't wait to get this thing out in the flats and go after some redfish, maybe in the mouth of a couple of creeks this time of year.